of the dark.
I'm not supposed to touch anyone. That's been a rule as long as I can remember. Mostly, my earliest memories are of my aunts and uncles smiling at me behind the glass in their white coats of air hugs and blowing kisses. But I have distant memories of another place, of men with guns, of a woman with a touch like silk. I think it was my mother. I remember a blinding light and a sound like thunder. The next thing I knew, I was here. I've been behind glass for a long time. No windows to see outside. No door in and out. Only a slot for meals. All my aunts and uncles have grown old and gray, yet I didn't seem to change. They never answered my questions. Who am I would ask. Where do I come from? All they ever told me was that I was sick, that I had to be kept locked away for my own safety until they found a cure. Even though I felt fine, I trusted them. I had no choice. I've had everything that I ever needed here. I've had hundreds of books to read, learned how to paint and draw, watched hours and hours of Gilligan's Island. But what I always wanted more than anything was to touch someone, even for a second. I tried once. A few years ago, one of my aunts was pushing supper through the meal slot. I backed up against the wall like always, but I couldn't help it. Without thinking, I ran forward and I grabbed her hand. I wish I hadn't. The second my hand touched hers, her skin turned black and brittle like burnt paper. It crept up her arm until her flesh peeled off of her skull, her eyes smoldering with a yellow fire. Blood ran out of her mouth, boiling. She screamed and screamed, but all I can do was sob, "I'm sorry," until security came. By the time they got her, she was a shadow burnt onto the floor. I finally understood. I was really sick. Very sick. But it wasn't my safety that I was concerned for. I thought I would be in here forever, a freak in a cage, until last week when all of my aunts and uncles gathered in a chamber one morning with exciting news for me. I was cured. They told me that the country needed me, that some government men needed my help on a big mission where I could touch as many people as I wanted. Men in rubber suits were going to take me far away to see the outside for the first time in forever. Just a few more days. I was so happy I couldn't help but cry. "Now wait, before you go, we have a gift for you," said one of my uncles, a smile beaming across his face. I waited with breathless excitement. "Your name is Moshishiro Yamamoto. You were born in the town of Nagasaki in the year 1945. My sister and I have always been diametric opposites. Honestly, I've had my doubts about us even being related. How could we be? I was a straight-A student, and she constantly skipped school. When I became the head cheerleader, she entered her goth phase. OMG. Those atrocious chains dangling from her pants, the jet black lipstick was horrendous. I can't believe Mom and Dad let her wear those outfits to church. I was in my best dress. She looked like she was going to a Slipknot concert. When I started dating Thomas, the quarterback from the football team, she called me cliché. Isn't that crazy? If anyone's cliché is her, the rebellious child. Thomas went to our church, and we both had similar activities. If anything, it's completely normal to date someone like that. She was just jealous of Thomas. Prom was coming up, which must have been very aggravating for her. Thomas and I were a shoe-in for prom king and queen, and of course nobody asked her. I mean, could she really blame anybody? She looked like a funeral. That's around the time when she started the witchcraft business, her latest attempt to get attention. I remember her forcing me to come into her room, She had a Ouija board, and as a Christian, I did not want to participate. She made me put my hands on hers and she asked, "Is anyone theirs?" And her hands moved to yes. She pretended to look so shocked when it happened. I had to leave the room before we consorted with a demon or the likes of it. A little bit after that, she started reading a lot of occult books, making all matters of strange trinkets and leaving them around the house. What was she trying to accomplish? What, strange magic? I know, I could have forgiven all of that. I could have just prayed for her. But then I found her in the kitchen. She had lit a bunch of candles. There were crystals and chalk drawings all over the table. Most shocking, both of our parents was with her. They were holding hands as my sister whispered some sinister words. And I couldn't stand idle anymore. What are you doing? You've got mom and dad involved into witchcraft? Don't you think we're summon actual demons? You need to go to church. The candles flickered. "Becca," my sister said, "are you there?" "Is this a joke? I'm right here." They all looked shocked. "Becca," my sister said, "we need you to picture where you are." And that's when vivid visions of the lake where Thomas first kissed me flew through my head. "Are you casting a spell on me? Stop it. I don't like this." "Just listen to me, Becca. The last thing you told me was that Thomas got you pregnant. You said you were going to tell him and then you never came back. The police say that you ran away. Where did you meet him?" "Stop it, Rachel. You're just lying for attention." I go to pick up the candle to throw it at my sister. But then my hand phases right through it. I was really young when my dad died, but I remember the aftermath. He and my uncle been out drinking and they got into a fight with the wrong guys. My dad got pummeled and died of eternal bleeding. Uncle Rich, on the other hand, didn't have a single injury. He said there was nothing he could have done. We all knew he was lying. Uncle Rich came to our house a few days after Dad's funeral. He was drunk. He yelled at my mom. She called him a coward for leaving my dad to die. He got violent. He then beat her into submission and told her that my dad's death was her fault, claiming she made him weak. We ended up moving away after that. I didn't talk to that side of the family for many years, but I always remembered that night. When I turned 18, I got back in touch with Uncle Rich. He hadn't changed one bit. He was so full of himself, projecting so much confidence to compensate for how spineless he was. But I humored him and talked about what he liked to talk about. He warmed up to me. And that's when I proposed a camping trip. He loved the idea because he thought spending time in the wilderness was manly. We made plans to hike a trail that went through some isolated mountainous terrain upstate. The plan was set. We took my car, but he insisted on driving. On the way out of the city, we realized that we needed to stop to fill up on gas. The neighborhood we stopped in was one of the more dangerous areas of the city, but it was just a pit stop. I told him that I would buy the gas, and I encouraged him to run over to the deli down the block to pick up a few sandwiches. As I filled up the tank, I thought about that night all those years ago when I came out of my room and I saw my mother collapse on the floor. She was bruised and bloody, and tears streaming down her face. I decided to grab a coffee from the convenience store. On my way there, I noticed two men rounded the corner. They walked up towards me and quickly pulled out their knives. They demanded my money. So I complied, pulling out my wallet. I happened to look to the side, and I saw Rich coming back from the deli. He froze in place when he saw something was happening. A few seconds later, he ran to the car. He promptly started it, and he peeled out of the parking lot. That bastard. And then the men lowered their knives. I paid them and thanked them for helping me put on that show and for cutting the brakes on the car while Rich was away. Rich died when the car collided with the truck. I made sure it looked like an accident. In truth, I didn't kill him. What really killed Uncle Rich was his own cowardice. My life was a sequence of familiar routines, a dull rhythm of predictable days. Each morning began with the gentle chime of my alarm clock, its beeping blending seamlessly with the hum of the city. As I dragged myself through the motions, shower, coffee, a brief glance at the news, I noticed the TV flickering with strange bursts of static. At first, I dismissed it as just a signal issue, but the flickers were becoming more frequent, lingering a little bit longer each day. Work was a monotonous blur of spreadsheets and reports. The soft buzz of my desk lamp, once comforting, seemed much louder. Faint crackling noises, like a distant radio not quite tuned in, began to creep into my awareness. Evenings were spent cooking simple meals while listening to the kitchen radio. Lately, it had been cutting out more often, the music replaced by sudden bursts of static. The interruptions were brief, but they left me uneasy, as if the static was trying to convey something that I couldn't understand. One night, the static on the TV surged, filling the screen with a swirling cloud of noise, and it didn't fade away. Instead, it throbbed with a rhythm, almost like heartbeat. I reached for the remote, but the TV wouldn't respond. The static pulsed, growing louder and more aggressive. A chill crept over me, and for the first time in my mundane life, I felt genuine fear. The next day, while reaching for a file at work, a sharp electric shock jolted through me. The lights flickered, and I thought I saw shapes moving within the flicker. I blinked, but they were gone. At home, the static was everywhere. The radio, the TV, even my phone crackled with it. The lights flickered more frequently, and I began to notice things at the corner of my eye. Faint ghostly images like reflections on the screen. Whenever I tried to focus on them, they would vanish. As I was shutting off the lights that night, a sharp pain seized my arm. My vision blurred, the world buzzed with electricity, and then everything went black. When I awoke, I was in a relentless, unending void. The cold, gray expanse stretched infinitely, like a vast ocean of static. Around me, blurry, indistinct forms drifted, mangled together, then drifted apart again. The noise I had once ignored in my boring life was now my entire reality. It wasn't just interference I'd been experiencing. It was a realm where lost souls resided, and now I am one of them. I am now the flash of light through a light bulb. I am now the soft crackle on the radio. I am now the sudden flicker on the TV. I am now simply just another particle of the static, a lost signal. One day, you'll be a lost signal too, just like me.
Ha 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 ha!